A bunch of reading and poetry in a spoken word format with Daniel on drums and John Pope on the bass. So, Bill is when's the release? Yes.
November 10th.
Bill's book release is November 10th.
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna let him tell you about the book, but it's pretty freaking phenomenal, and it's a labor of love, and it's been happening for a long time. So we're all rejoicing with him about that.
It's a memoir, so it's been happening for a very long time.
So memoir, and everybody. So everybody, give it up for Bill, Shunn, and John Pope, please.
February 23rd, 1987. The detective unlocks my tiny room and drags a plastic chair in from the hallway. Mr. Shunn, she says, I'd like to ask you some questions now, if you have a few minutes. I'm not going anywhere, I say, narrowing my eyes, my stinging eyes. There's no one but the detective and me in this consultation booth, no knob on the inside of the door. The detective locks us in, sits down, crosses her legs, and smooths her short skirt. I squirm in my chair. She's disconcertingly blonde, mid-30s. I'm 19 years old. I haven't been this close to a woman in 5 months. With no table between us, our legs nearly touch. This is against mission rules in so many ways I can't even count. She arranges a steno pad atop her bare thigh, pencil sharpened and poised. Should I call you, what is it, Elder instead? I breathe easy and try to keep my eyes above her neck. Either way. Your name, please, Elder? I'm confused. You used it a minute ago. For the record, her green eyes don't blink. Full name. I touch the spot on my sweater where the black name tag should have been. Donald William Shunn II. Age, 19. Are you a Canadian citizen? No, I'm American. And you've been in Canada for how long? 5 months, about? Any previous criminal record? No. She takes sharp, efficient notes in shorthand, a skill I didn't know still existed. Okay, Elder, she says, crossing her legs the other way. Let's talk about your activities today. I keep my eyes up. I've been through this already, with the constable at the airport. She shrugs. Now you're going through it with me, and you'll probably go through it with someone else after that. That's how these things go. I'd like to talk to my mission president. So would we, Elder. We take terrorism very seriously. The word knocks the wind out of me. What? Terrorism? Conspiracy? Conspiracy? There's no conspiracy. She wraps her pencil against the pad. Imagine what it looks like from here. I close my eyes, trying to work my frozen lungs. How many times was Joseph Smith in scrapes like this? Plenty, and he got through it. Well, no, actually they shot him in the end. But I try not to think about that. I can get through this. Elder Shunn, tell me, says the detective. Tell me how you ended up here. My impulse is to blurt out everything. I take a deep breath. I choose my details with care. That's the prologue from my soon-to-be-released memoir, The Accidental Terrorist. Confessions of a Reluctant Missionary, which tells the story of how, as a teenage Mormon serving a 2-year mission in Alberta, Canada, I came to face charges of hijacking, and which also attempts to explain the life of founding Mormon prophet Joseph Smith Jr. Believe it or not, we're going to take you all the way through the book here tonight, with stops in a few different airports and bus stations. But we're going to do some poems for you too along the way. Behind me, these are the sex rays.
Yeah.
My name is Bill Shunn. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a writer, a blogger, a podcaster, a programmer, a designer, an inventor, a collector, a cabinet maker, a bowler, a moviegoer, a foodie, a traveler, tinkerer, an atheist, and a priest, a curmudgeon, a felon, a photographer, a chauffeur, a skeptic, a rube, a ruffian, a layabout, a lurker, a dilettante, a poseur, a pundit, a primate, an ancestor, an earthling, an alien, a canvas, a convenience, an improvisation, an illusion. Thank you. We'd like to do another little poem for you now. This is sort of a character study. It's called Coney Island Lifeguard Blues.
Yeah.
Brooklyn bound N train Thursday evening, leaving Ditmars Boulevard, end of the line. He slouches through the doors from the next car like a gunslinger into a quiet saloon, angry and blonde under a straw fedora, jaunty beach towel around the shoulders of his Cuban shirt, belligerent hips thrust forward, hand jammed down the front of his oversized blue swim trunks, like he's just waiting to unload on the first cocksucker who looks at him funny. No one gives him the satisfaction. Where is he coming from, this Lord of Flatbush, this warrior coming out to play? There's no beach at Ditmars, not unless you just swam over from Rikers. It's 90 minutes to Coney Island, and dusk will soon be falling. 100 minutes, let's say, since humiliation sent him fleeing the sand and cotton candy to the farthest corner of the earth. Astoria, Queens. But the gravity of betrayal on an otherwise perfect afternoon draws him back to an abandoned beach blanket for two in the shadow of a graffiti-tagged lifeguard tower. Flopped in a plastic seat, legs splayed, glaring and helpless, he burns to curse the heavens. But all the God was prayed out of him as a child. Or is he still a child? Hands down his pants, fondling his balls like worry beads, like a long dormant rosary, Hail Mary full of grace, spectacles, testicles, wallet, watch me, no, don't watch me, what are you looking at anyway? 90 minutes to Coney Island, end of the line, to take back what's his, or more likely, kick sand in the face of the moon. Thank you. Give it up for the Dream Killers. My name is Bill Shunn, and I spent 6 years of my life in Chicago. We're going to take you back there now to a neighborhood called Andersonville. Biking on Bryn Mawr Avenue. Clear sky, afternoon sun. I pull over to the curb for the ambulance hurtling my way. But it turns on Clark Street, and as I pass through the intersection, I see the gapers gathered, the body in the street, face down, lying twisted like a crash test dummy. I have to look, but I can't look. I make myself not look, face forward into traffic, lest I become the thing I gaze upon. We're really happy to be here tonight. We have to thank poor Colin and especially Barbara Lynn, not just for inviting us, but for coming up with the idea of doing a set like this in the first place. So let's hear it for Barbara Lynn. And for Colin, happy anniversary, you guys. All I got you was this. We also want to thank HiFi Bar for hosting these Sunday sessions. Visit Galen often. Tip like you mean it. Maybe you want a nice single malt whiskey.
Or an Irish baby.
Or one of those, but I'm going to have a single malt.
Isn't that cheap?
I didn't know it was going to be that kind of party.
I gonna be that kind of party. Makes me want to do a poem. This one's called Smoke. I make it my general practice not to drink and write. At least I try not to drink when writing fiction, where the prose should be clear and lucid as water, even as it refracts the light. But poetry is a different matter. A little whiskey never hurt a poem. Not much, anyway. Certainly not this glass of it, distilled from smoke that might have scribbled words like these in the air as it jittered away, leaving only this amber residue, not so transparent as it appears. Thank you. So I get this book coming out in a few weeks, The Accidental Terrorist. It took me 17 years to write, no joke. There's a box of them here somewhere. If you come find me after, I give you one for 15 bucks. I'm going to read another excerpt for you. This one's from the middle of the book. It's the end of 1986, between Christmas and New Year's. I'm a 19-year-old Mormon missionary in a little oil town called Brooks, Alberta. I'm homesick as fuck, miserable. I miss my fiancée Katrina back home in Utah. And missionary life has finally gotten so bad for me that I bought a bus ticket and headed south. Despite the fact that when I get home, my parents, my church leaders, and my congregation are all going to be extremely disappointed, even angry with me for bailing after 4 months of what was supposed to be a 2-year commitment. But it turns out that leaving a mission isn't so easy. The church has put out an APB on me, and there are missionaries and church leaders spanning out to try to catch me at various spots along my route. I managed to avoid them at the US border, but the deeper I get into Montana, the more paranoid I'm starting to get. The sun was touching the bare treetops as we pulled into Great Falls. The bus station was a cramped 2-story building. Its first floor a clutter of ticket windows and vending machines. We had 45 minutes to stretch our legs. This would be our longest stop until Idaho Falls. 24 people crowded the lobby. As I made my way across the scuffed gray tile, I noticed a silver-haired man in a black leather jacket, loitering. Had he glanced my way as I walked in? I wasn't sure, but something told me I needed to get out of there. Don't be paranoid. There wasn't a toilet on the bus, and I badly needed to pee. You're fine. The signs indicated a men's room on the 2nd floor. I climbed the narrow staircase. A casual glance over the railing when I reached the top showed the man in the leather jacket starting up after me. Shit. I took a few steps into the dusty, low-ceilinged hallway upstairs, trying to breathe evenly. I could see no way out but a pebbled window reinforced with chicken wire at the far end. It was the men's room or back down the stairs. Judas Proust, settle down. This isn't a spy novel. Just do your business, walk out and get some dinner. This guy's got nothing to do with you. The men's room was armored in cracked yellow tile. A man in a duster hemmed with dried mud washed his hands at a sink to my left. I walked past him as the men's room door slapped shut behind me. Water deposits stained the 4 floor-length urinals. I stepped to one of the middle units and fumbled with my zipper. The door opened as I began relieving myself. I heard the man in the duster walk out, but another slow set of footsteps clicked across the floor and stopped 6 feet behind me. My chest felt hollow. The urgent, endless torrent splashing the porcelain rooted me in place. Behind me, the man in the leather jacket said, "Elder Shunn." I could have denied it. I could have screamed. I could have turned and pissed on his black cowboy boots.
Yeah.
When I think back on that moment, I wish I'd done any or all of those things. But exhaustion, anger, and resignation had wrung all the ideas out of me. Over my shoulder, I bitterly snapped, "You picked a fine time for a confrontation." I could just see him, leaning against the tiled wall with his arms folded. "This gives us a chance to talk." So talk. I said, shaking off and zipping up. I felt less vulnerable with my dick stowed, but not much. Okay, I'm President Garfield of the Great Falls Steak. I crossed to the sinks. My hands shook as I turned the taps. I was so stupid, so naive. I watched him in the mirror. You don't look like a steak, President. I appreciate that. He was short and trim and wore black jeans and a black t-shirt with the leather jacket. You got a lot of people worried about you, you know, Elder Shunn. You got a mission president back in Calgary who's just sick about this. He's trying to figure out what he did wrong. I dried my hands and just looked at him. He shifted his feet. Listen, why don't you come back to my spread? Just to talk. I got a bus to catch. There's always another bus. Your ticket will be good for the next one. We'll give President Tuttle a call, let him know you're okay. Maybe we'll talk Sister Garfield into serving some of her famous lasagna. You must be getting sick of road food. I made a sound like gears grinding low in my throat. I don't know what kind of Jedi mind trick it was, but I just couldn't help trusting church leaders when they spoke reasonable sounding words. I didn't know how not to. It was my kryptonite. All right, okay, I said, and I hated myself for it. Thank you. All right. I'm Bill Shunn. These guys are the ankle bracelets.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a couple more poems for you now. This one's called The Lunar Night, Chicago. In the indigo sky hang lights like lanterns, strung from here to eternity. Bright holes punched in the night, they creep in from the east, cued for landing, but aimed at the spotlit moon holding fast in their path. But the moon gives way, first to one plane, then the next, endlessly ceding its place in line as if shy to touch down at O'Hare. Would they even know how to handle a moon out on the tarmac? Call the Marines. Call Homeland Security. Just get that thing quarantined before it hurts some fool or alters the tides. In the icy park, we watch the planes, the dog and I. Lights prowl past us on two horizons, Damon and Foster Avenues, impossibly distant in the winter air that falls like gravel from my mouth. The sub-zero air as cold as no air at all. Around us spreads the pocked and cratered snow. We are alone. If I were to slip here on the ice, hit my head, crack my skull, the blood spreading like transmission fluid as the dog whined and licked my face, no one else would know. In space, no one can hear you whimper, and we might as well be on the moon. Thank you. Wow,
All right.
This next poem was written as a Kickstarter perk. Whoever donated a certain amount to help the Chicago Writers Conference got to pick any topic they wanted, and I'd write a custom poem about it. The winner chose the topic reading, kind of a broad subject, and I wrote this. It's called Telegraph. The telegraph was not invented in 1836, but 3,000 years before Christ, when the first writer took up a pointed stick and traced out on papyrus the careful, casual chain of coded symbols that transmitted meaning across time and space directly into a brain equipped to decipher it. The telephone was not invented in 1876, but over 5,000 years ago when the first writer took up a pointed stick and scratched out the vibrations in clay that tickle the tympanic membrane of the heart with thoughts conceived in days older than dirt. Telepathy was not invented in 2170, but 40,000 years before Christ, when by the light of smoky torches, the first writer poured out his heart in ochre and hematite and charcoal, unable in any other way to express the experience of stalking a god and slaying it with a pointed stick. Thank you. Let's hear it for the Icy Hots. This next poem is not a school shooting poem. This poem is my trench coat. I used to wear a trench coat when I was in high school. Black. I wore aviator sunglasses too, and a fedora. I didn't want to hurt anyone who wasn't corrupt. I was editor of the school paper. I thought that was how a proper investigative reporter should dress. Yeah, I took some shit for the trench coat. But not as much as you'd think. It even helped me to get a girlfriend. Well, 2 years later. It was the memory of it. The trench coat had sparked a crush that could never have caught fire in high school. She was on the drill team. But I never once thought of bringing a gun to school. That wasn't what the trench coat stood for. Maybe once or twice I thought about it. Jeff Sampson. Sharpen your own fucking pencil, bitch!
Yeah!
We're gonna take you to the Rocky Mountains now, in the middle of a snowstorm. This is Road Trip 1985. I-80, Wyoming, nighttime, eastern slope, continental divide, 15-foot U-Haul truck, 50 to 60 miles per hour, girlfriend white-knuckled behind the big wheel, swerving, skidding on the downhill ice, all our possessions rocking in back, not quite overbalanced. I pumped my passenger brake, of course to no effect. Snowflakes like hyperspatial streaks in the headlight beams. I gently suggest slowing down or even pulling over to let me drive instead, but not gently enough. I'm an excellent driver, she insists. You should have seen that time I spun out in Texas and I didn't even run off the road. But I grew up driving in snow, I tell her, and you didn't. You have to slow down. It's the wrong thing to say, and we fishtail again, one moment of terror in the long, slow slide from West Coast to East Coast, one harrowing strobe-lit frame from the super slow-motion accident that is us. Thank you. We're going to do another excerpt now from The Accidental Terrorist. Remember that name. So now it's February of 1987. I did stay on my mission, and at this point I've drunk the Kool-Aid pretty deeply. I didn't get into any trouble for running away, but my leaders have impressed upon me that my partner, the missionary who let me run away, is in deep trouble for not doing everything in his power to keep me from leaving. So of course, it's 2 months later, and I find myself in the exact reverse situation. My companion is now trying to leave his mission. I'm at the Calgary airport. He's already boarded his flight, and I'm having trouble getting anyone on the phone who can help. I stood there, head down, hands on my hips, for at least a full minute, mulling over my options. There weren't many. So now it had come down to this: the backup plan, the Hail Mary, the in case of emergency break glass final resort. I took out a quarter, rubbing my thumb obsessively across the Queen's face. Mormonism has a long tradition of earthly laws broken in pursuit of a higher good. One example is the incident early in the Book of Mormon where God commands Nephi to smite off Laban's head with his own sword. Laban was custodian of the scriptural records that Nephi needed to take with him to America. Laban refused to hand them over, so God set aside the commandment against murder to accomplish a higher good. This story, of course, sprang from Joseph Smith's imagination, but he certainly never hesitated to break the law himself in real life when it stood in the way of the cause of righteousness. These rationalizations aside, what I wanted most was to not end up like Elder Deadman, busted for not doing everything in my power to keep my companion from leaving his mission. I could not face that trauma and humiliation too, not on top of everything I'd been through already. I could not face more of President Tuttle's disapproval. And if I wasn't going to listen to my leaders, then why had I stayed out on my mission at all? Fuck it. The longer I waited, the harder this was going to be. I ripped the phone book open to the yellow pages and swiped through until I found airlines. There were several listings under Occidental Airlines, but most of them were 800 numbers. The last listing, though, was definitely local. I could tell by the area code: Occidental Air Cargo. That was the one I wanted. I dropped a quarter in the slot. My hand shook like an old man's as I dialed the number. I couldn't get enough breath. I tasted copper. The line picked up on the first ring. "Occidental Air Cargo," said a young man. "How can I help you?" I took a deep breath. Sister Youts had complimented my deep, rich telephone voice. I used it now, slowly, clearly, and distinctly. "There's a bomb in a suitcase on flight 789. I hung up. As I backed away from the phone, I realized I was grinning. I couldn't believe I'd actually done it, conceived and executed such a crazy, brilliant left field gambit. I was a giant, a legend, a colossus, pumped up to superhuman dimensions by my sheer reckless audacity. In 3 strides, I could be through the wall and out on the tarmac, a berserker tossing trucks and planes like medicine balls. Elder Shunn smash puny humans. Bah! But over the next few moments, it dawned on me that I had just broken the law in a serious way. The euphoria drained out of me as I shrank back to normal size. The airline surely traced all incoming calls. The police were no doubt mobilizing now, converging on my location. A violent spasm shook me. I had to move. Thank you. Spoilers, sorry. We're going to do a little bit more poetry now and stay on the topic of crime. This one's about that feeling you get when you click on a link someone emailed you and up pops a newspaper article with a mugshot that looks sadly familiar. This is "Police Recover Stash of Stolen Items." The face is the biggest shock. After the name, your name almost. The face you knew from childhood, mischievous, wry, handsome, now stony as battered granite. The young features punched up and pounded like wet clay, then fired hard in a 1,000-degree kiln. The face, discovered with, quote, burglary tools, methamphetamine, and more than 100 stolen items belonging to more than 30 people, unquote. The face leaps out from the article from 1,500 miles away like a fugitive in a game of hide-and-go-seek, flushed out from the shadows of the chicken coop when you'd forgotten you were even playing, racing to make it home free. What could you have done? returned more of his phone calls. At some point you knew somewhere in those 20 years of rob, arrest, repeat, you had to keep your distance. He was your cousin. It wasn't like he was your brother. But you weren't there yet at that first apartment where you lived on your own, when you locked your keys inside, when that confident, capable face you'd known from infancy said, "I'll get in," and did. And you thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's hear it for the morphine drips. Please don't forget to go to the bar, buy plenty of drinks, tip generously. There's a lot of really great beers on tap up there, craft beers. And as you sample them, the band wants you to keep in mind these tasting notes. Malt, caramel, subtle peppery undertone, juniper, crisp pine, grapefruit aroma, chocolate, mellow hops, rich toffee notes, freshly baked biscuits, clean desert aroma, citrus weed, tangy cactus spine, horse blanket. Slight nuttiness, hints of bourbon, smoked rubber, magnesium flare, coconut oil, disintegrated cork, essence of latex and sand, porcelain overtones, back alley rainwater, wisps of mousetrap wood, gunpowder residue, WD-40, battery copper, flop sweat, gumballs, revenge, rocket fuel, interplanetary dust, Venusian methane, tears of loneliness. Thank you. Drink up. You used to be such a sweet boy. What changed? You used to tell me everything. Ask me all your questions. You couldn't wait to show off your times tables. At age 3, which you worked out for yourself. What changed? You used to climb into my lap and rub the buzz-cut fuzz on the back of my head. You used to ask the barber to cut your hair so it was just like mine. What changed? You used to show me your stories, talk about your friends, tell me what was on your mind. You used to let me point out where you were straying from the straight and narrow, in deed or in thought. What changed? You didn't used to keep to yourself, skulk around the house, stay in your room, use that gutter language. I didn't used to need to drink or use this belt on you. What changed? Thank you. All right. We're doing one that wasn't. in our set notes. But
Good night, baby.
this is a poem called Instinct, where we're winging it. Yeah, that poem required John to, the notes say loose floppy string. That doesn't sound like a good tasting note.
It's a great name for a band now.
Loose floppy string? What would their first album be?
Classical.
There you have it. Let me tell you a story. This morning I was out walking the dog, who honestly can be a grouchy pain in the ass. But today she was pretty good. It was clear and cold, being October, and we had waited more than 5 minutes to cross a busy street. Ella was alert for squirrels, trotting with her head up like a tiny horse, when half a block ahead we saw a woman walking a shepherd mix. It was small for a shepherd, brown with a little bit of red in it. Ella sat down on her haunches, as she sometimes does, and would not budge. It's her way of telling the other dog that they're equals, that she's not afraid. I made her keep walking though, but I kept her on the side of me away from the other dog, just to be on the safe side, because you never know. As we passed the woman, her dog lunged in front of me. Ella lunged back. She's a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier and doesn't look like she could be that tough, but they were both about the same size and it was an even match. In the growling confusion of bodies and leashes and guttural snarls, I could see the other dog's teeth, like points of gleaming bone, trying to find their way home in my dog's throat. I hauled Ella into the air by her leash and swung her clear of the scrap. She wears a body harness and not just a collar for exactly that reason. The woman, sounding shaken, could not have apologized more. Her dog never acts like that. I was shaken too. She thanked me for being so cool, but it's like I told her. Sometimes things like this just happen. There's no reason for it. It's much the same way that I don't like you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Bill Shunn. These are the prophets of loss.
Yeah.
We're going to close out with the epilogue from The Accidental Terrorist. For those of you who like to skip ahead and read the ending first. And we have advanced copies for sale if anyone wants one. Find me afterwards. I won't be hard to find. First, thanks to HiFi for letting us be here. Thanks to Barbara Lynn and poor Colin for inviting us. Let's give them another big hand. And keep coming out and supporting the Sunday sessions at HiFi. So, in the epilogue of the book, we jump ahead to 2003 to a Christmas party my wife and I threw at our apartment in Astoria. Among the guests were my long-ago former fiancée, Katrina, now living in Connecticut, and her new, much younger Belgian husband, Bernard, who we were meeting for the first time. And Katrina and I had stayed in touch over the years, having broken up after my mission and both drifted away from the Mormon Church. An hour later, I'm talking in the kitchen with a small group of friends when Bernard saunters over and inserts himself into the conversation. "You know what I just found out that I did not know before?" he says to the group in a slurred accent. Our liquor cabinet seems to have loosened and thickened his tongue considerably. "I found out in the car on the way down here. This guy here," he indicates me with the wine glass in his hand, "he used to be engaged to my wife." I glance around the circle of 5 or 6 people. Well, this is awkward. "Yeah," Bernard continues, he got engaged to her at some airport." I don't like the intent look on Bernard's face, nor his belligerent tone. I haven't been in a fight since junior high, but I can still sense the inexplicable threat of violence in the air. I try to play it casual. That was a really long time ago. We were kids. I was 19. Yeah, and my wife was 20. Time to change the subject, Bill, my friend Bob says quietly. I've known him since before I was a missionary. You're only digging yourself in deeper. Can you believe this? Bernard says, spreading his arms and sloshing some of his wine onto the floor. I only just found out. That's a pretty big thing. No, really, it's not. I try to make it sound offhand. It didn't mean anything. To Mormons, getting engaged is a pastime. It's a sport. It's just what you do. Unfazed by my commentary, Bernard looks around the circle, unsteady on his feet. You know what else I found out? There was something about a ring, this ring, made out of wrapping paper? I look around the group again. Foil. It was the foil wrapper from a stick of chewing gum. Bernard wags a finger at me. Yeah, that was it. A gum wrapper. And you know what else? He leans in close enough for me to gag on his breath, but doesn't lower his voice at all. She still has it. She still has that ring. I don't know why this comes as such a shock. I never considered how that time of our lives might have been as important to Katrina as it was to me. I do my best to keep a neutral expression. The tension is almost unbearable. That's nothing, Bernard, I say, patting him on the shoulder. I still have the gum. For a moment, he looks like he believes me. Then everyone laughs good-naturedly, and so does he, and the tension washes away. With a couple of dips of his head, Bernard wanders away in search of other entertainment. You dodged a bullet there, pal, Bob says. I rub a hand across my face and blow out my breath. I'm thinking of those 6 months in Canada which have all come flooding back. That's my superpower, I say, and I go looking for a drink. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you for